In a nutshell, the theories of social constructivism and social constructionism are based on the idea that knowledge is socially constructed. Although I am fully aware that these two theories are not identical, they are closely related enough that I am content to think of them as one. I will leave the task of preserving the nitpicky details to scholars who are more meticulous than I am. I will tell you, however, that Lev Vygotsky is the guy who is credited with having first introduced the idea of social constructivism, and Peter L. Berger and Thomas Luckman introduced social constructionism. These are important names to know when discussing these theories, which I would encourage you to do because, according to the theories, that is basically how we learn. So, what does it mean when we say that knowledge is socially constructed? Essentially, that tells us that learning takes place in the context of social interaction. Simply put, people learn from each other, and together they create knowledge. The things that we know are a product of our interactions with each other and our environments. So it's not that social groups construct reality, but rather that together they construct an understanding of reality. Let me give you a few examples to clarify what I'm talking about. Example number one. Think for just a second about what music is according to you, right? So if you grew up in the United States like I did, then what you think of as music is probably based on the melodic, harmonic, and rhythmic systems that originated from the Western European classical music tradition, even if you do not like or listen to classical music. If you grew up in a society that had limited or no contact with Europeans or Americans until relatively recently, then what you think of as music probably sounds very different from what I think of as music. So in other words, the music of a distant culture literally might not be music to your ears if you did not interact with people from that culture while you were developing your understanding of what music is. A second example. It is becoming clearer and clearer all the time that gender is a socially constructed concept, and that the average American's concept of gender is probably too limited. A person's understanding of how men and women are supposed to behave is largely dependent upon when and where they grew up. And, historically, our society has been one where boys wear blue and play sports, and girls wear pink and play with dolls. Now, fortunately, these norms and expectations are changing, but we still generally think of gender as a fixed, stable trait that you're born with. That's changing, though. As a society, we're beginning to recognize and acknowledge that male and female may not be clear-cut categories that everyone fits neatly into. We seem to be moving toward redefining gender as a continuum of possibilities rather than as a binary defined by what you have between your legs. So I learned about this spectrum idea a few years back in a class during a discussion about gender roles. And until then, I knew that everyone was either male or female. My ideas changed, though, once I had the opportunity to interact with people who thought differently. Final example, and this one is a bit of a mind bender. Our concept or our understanding of social constructivism or constructionism is itself a social construct. Since these theories are quite esoteric and complex, I feel like everyone I talk to about them or every source that I consult has a slightly different take on what exactly they are. So, through interacting with people, both face-to-face and in writing, I am constructing my own understanding of what these theories are. And as people grapple with these theories and grapple with these ideas, the knowledge itself changes. So in other words, the concept of social construction or constructivism that we have today is very different from what Lev Vygotsky initially proposed. It has evolved, it has developed. And as people attempt to communicate with each other about what social constructivism is, they add their own perspective or their own nuances, and so the knowledge itself changes. Now let me just address real quickly how knowing about these theories has helped me to live a better life. Thanks in part to these theories, I have come to recognize that my knowledge and my beliefs are not objective reality. What I know is based on the ideas of other people, and so if their ideas were flawed, mine will be too. This also helps me appreciate cultural differences. It makes sense why one culture's understanding of reality would be different from another, because until fairly recently, individuals from various cultures had limited chances to interact with one another. Furthermore, since societies construct their understanding of reality, it's fairly safe to say that nobody's version is probably completely accurate. And these theories, finally, they also remind me of the value of social interaction. I am kind of a loner, so I sometimes avoid social situations. However, knowing about these theories reminds me that, every interaction is a potential learning opportunity, so if I want to learn, I had better get out there and talk to people. Now, that said, social interaction does not necessarily have to be face-to-face, so there is still plenty to be learned from books and other media. Thank goodness for that. So I hope that gives you a little something to think about, and happy learning!